So why have the RCMP decided not to lay charges in this case?
The investigation has been completed. Our first priority was share that with the family, and as much publicized, the review of our investigation by the Alberta Serious Incident Response Team was also important to have the family meet with them and go over that. The investigation is complete. It's a tragic circumstances for the family. There's no I guess the overall completeness of the investigation was the examination of that review. It was determined that we did everything appropriate through the course of standardized practices, and the information that was gathered during the course of investigation did not require criminal charges.
What more can you tell us about what actually happened? We've been told basically a shot was fired in the house when the RNC went to the house, but what more can you tell us about what actually happened?
We can't discuss a lot of the details of the investigation. There's reports of a pending inquiry into this matter. The RCP certainly doesn't want to do any or provide any information that might slant or hamper that process from unfolding as it should.
What do you say to people who,
the
RNC is the force involved, the other provincial police force, yours, investigated them, even though ACERT investigated, there are going to be people who say, well, of course the police officer wasn't charged. What do you say to those people who have that feeling?
We certainly understand that, and that I think that's part of why the Alberta Serious Incident Response Team was called in. They're an independent, civilian-led investigative body who reviewed our investigation. They reviewed it. They examined every aspect of it, were provided with all the information. Their conclusions were that it was done with no bias, no tunnel vision, no lack of objectivity, and it was thorough and complete, following the best standards and practices of major case management.
Will anything change as a result of this? Because one of the criticisms is that a police officer went there alone, and there was another person, there were no other witnesses. Had two officers gone, somebody else may have been able to say more about what happened.
I think all of that will be part of what, if there is an inquiry into that matter. To speculate on what will happen in the future, I can't comment on that.
But
Will the
prior to an
ACERT
inquiry,
report be
will there
released?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Will the ACERT report be released?
No, the ACERT report is part of our investigation. It falls into that. The content of it is such that it can't be released because it is part of the investigation itself. The findings we shared through the fact of that it was a review was completed and that the investigation that we conducted was thorough, complete, and unbiased.
The report of David Rich was supposed to be released at the conclusion of this whole process. Is that going to happen?
That was part of the ACERT's review, and it was included in all the information.
So, but when Mr. Rich was retained, the public was told that his report would be released publicly. Is that happening?
No, there will be no reports released with regard to that. Again, as mentioned, it's part of the investigation itself, and as part of the investigation, it will be part of what is examined if there is a pending inquiry.
But if the investigation is concluded and a decision has been made, what is the imperative for withholding this documentation?
We don't normally release any information from our investigations, witness statements, lab test results. That's normal. It's not unheard of that we don't release that sort of information. There is, as I mentioned, a pending inquiry, and we certainly don't want to be doing anything that would hamper or slant how that would turn out.
Are you aware by not releasing the report, it creates an environment that is ripe for speculation, and how do you plan to combat that, if at all?
Well, I think the thing we have to focus on here is that our investigation was reviewed by an independent civilian-led third body. They investigated our investigation to check for bias, prejudice, a lack of objectivity. They found none of that. They found that the investigation was done thorough, completely, and with the best practices of modern case management.
Were there
But how
any
can we know that?
recommendations made?
Yes, we would expect there would be recommendations, as different police services have different practices, and but the recommendations that were provided had no impact on the conclusions that were reached during the course of that investigation.
So were there recommendations made in the ACERT report?
Yes.
How many?
I wasn't privy to the report myself. The recommendations as such did not have any impact on the outcome, and that is documented.
But how can we trust you when you say that the recommendations didn't have any bearing and that ACERT certified that it was a fair investigation if we can't see the ACERT report?
That is ACERT's determination from there. That is their conclusion.
They concluded that the report cannot be released.
No, they concluded that the recommendations had no impact on the outcome of the investigation.
But I mean, at this point, all we have is the RCMP's say-so. We haven't seen any documentation. We haven't seen the ACER report. How can we just blindly trust the RCMP on this?
The investigation was reviewed by an independent, civilian-led third party. They reviewed our investigation, made those determinations, and that's what we shared with you today.
Can you tell us how many shots were fired that day?
No, I can't tell you any of the information that's in part of the investigation. All that will be probably part of what comes forward at the provincial inquiry.
Was the officer who shot and killed Mr. Don Dunphy following normal protocol? Can you say that?
That protocol for all these procedures for the RNC, we'd have to speak to them.
Is it fair to say he shot Don Dunphy in self-defense?
The investigation that we conducted into this examined all the circumstances. It's a very tragic incident. We looked at all aspects, all the circumstances surrounding in the information, and there was no information that led us to lay any criminal charges.
Right. What does that mean? Does that mean he didn't break any rules? Does that mean he didn't do anything illegal? What exactly did he do or not do that day?
I'm sorry, I'm not.
So you're saying there's nothing to suggest that there's any charges warranted. Can you tell us if he shot himself? I mean, what does that mean? Did he shoot the other man in self-defense? Was Mr. Dunphy shot in self-defense? Was he shot?
Yes, we're saying basically that the investigation concluded that as much force was used as was necessary, and there was no information around the circumstances in the investigation itself that would lead us to lay any criminal charges.
What was the reaction of Mr. Dunphy's family when they were given the ACER report?
This is a very tragic incident. I don't want to pretend to speak on their behalf. We met with them this morning. We arranged for ACER to come and meet with them to go over the report with them, and I don't want to, speak on their behalf. It would not be appropriate.
Okay, but the family has seen the report and have spoken to ACER.
We arranged for the family to meet with ACER, and they went over their findings with them.
When did they go over this with the family?
This was arranged for this morning.
This morning.
So, but really, I mean, at this point, all the public has is you telling us that everything was above board. Are you at all concerned that people won't believe you?
Our investigation was reviewed by an independent civilian-led third party. They provided the report. They reviewed our investigation, and they were satisfied that we followed every step and covered all the aspects of the investigation that was needed.
But how can we know that if we can't see the report?
The report can't be released. It's part of our investigation, and we're certainly not going to do anything that would hamper a pending inquiry that's coming on this
Can you
matter.
tell us if they made any recommendations to the RNC that the RNC should implement prior to an inquiry? For instance, sending 2 officers to somebody's house rather than 1?
Well, the role of the ACER report was to review our investigation itself, and it was not a review of procedures or practices of another police service.
Okay, so ACER had nothing to say about the way the RNC handled it. It was only about how you investigated his investigation.
And how we conducted the investigation is a very tragic incident. That is correct.
Did your investigation have any suggestions for the RNC and how the RNC should handle this incident?
Our investigation was into the sudden death of Mr. Dunphy, and again, to get into the details of any part of our investigation would not be appropriate.
Did the RCMP investigation look into whether the visit was warranted?
All of the aspects of the investigation and details surrounding it, it will be part of what the public inquiry, if there is one held, and there is one apparently pending according to what you you hear from the proposal. So we're not going to make any comments about the details of our investigation.
And I'm not really asking the details, I'm asking for the scope. Were you looking at the shooting itself, or what led up to the shooting, and whether that was? Were you looking at a decision to go there?
Our investigation covered all the circumstances leading into that situation.